Good evening, and this is Adam Davey and Gavin for the V2 Wrestling Podcast. Good evening, Gavin.
Good evening.
And tonight I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Brit indie sensation Mark Haskins. Good evening, Mark.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Fantastic. So what part of the world are you in tonight then?
Tonight I'm in Worcester, England, just currently where I reside at the moment, spending the night with the family.
And hopefully that's treating you well, because I was looking at what you've been up to the last few nights, and you've had 3 shows in as many nights. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. I have a memory like a sieve. I really don't remember what I did last week at all, but it was definitely a hectic weekend. I ended up fighting Doug Williams on one of the nights, which was especially cool because it's now been 2 years since we fought on pay-per-view for TNA at Destination X. And then the following night, I fought a British wrestler who some of your listeners may know as the Heavyweight House of Pain Sticks, which is always fun to get in there and, slap him around like a little bitch.
Right, okay. And which show was that? Was that Progress Wrestling?
That was the Progress Wrestling, which is based out of Islington in London. And there's some manic shows. If you guys haven't had the chance to go down and check them out, I would so encourage it. It's such a crazy and different atmosphere down there. Is definitely something you have to go through.
Just on that note, I mean, I'll be honest, I'll hold my hands up. Gavin and I have been doing this for over a year now, and it was the first indie show that I went to a week and a half ago at the Citadel in Ayr, and where I saw you. And I've got to say, I absolutely loved it. But do the promotions differ that much, would you say?
When you say differ, like, how do you mean it such?
As in, well, I found it very, very family orientated, and almost at times some of the matches, like the first one, was very, very panto. To some extent, don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved it. Yours was very high flying. But do you find that the different promotions tell you to go much more stiff or much more hardcore? How does it work for you? Do they give you guidance, or do you just do your own thing?
No, not really. I mean, I get told who I'm fighting on the show, when to turn up, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
I mean, obviously you're going to have some shows like Fight Club Pro, which is out of Wolverhampton, and Progress Wrestling, which is out of London, where they're both, for the most part, over 18s shows. Mm-hmm. So obviously you're going to have less of a family-friendly vibe in those kind of places. They're a lot of fun to be a part of. Especially because for a long time I hadn't been a part of an over 18 show. It's kind of, I guess, like a breath of fresh air in some regards, because it's just like a different environment that is fun to be a part of, I suppose.
So are there particular promotions that are kind of more fun to work with, or where certain ones that have a reputation for having kind of more rowdy fans and that kind of thing, or fans who are, I hate to use the term, but sort of smart marks?
I don't really know about that. I mean, Progress Wrestling is definitely fun because the audience there, they make the show. They're as much of the show as the wrestlers are. It was quite funny. I was watching the main event, which was Rampage Brown versus Al Ligero, and they were fighting through the crowd, and they make it onto one side, and because a lot of people can't see it, suddenly a chant broke out, which was, "This sounds awesome," which even made me laugh. And then when they finally got back into the ring after fighting around the entire place, everybody started chanting "Welcome back," which once again tickled me. I mean, they're just creative with their chants, and it's just funny. It's interesting as well to see what they come out with, as much as it is, watching the rest of the show.
Well, we had a big discussion on our show last week about the smart chants, and things like that, and how they can, especially in the big promotions in WWE and TNA, where people shout things like Husky Harris to Bray Wyatt's new gimmick. Do you think that sometimes that they spoil the show?
I suppose to some degree. I mean, every once in a while you'll just find people who, rather than sit back and enjoy it, come out with certain things because they want to make themselves look clever, or they want to sound, cool, or whatever it is. And I guess sometimes that can kind of ruin an atmosphere a little bit. But I mean, for the most part, it's just fun and games.
I mean, looking back at your career so far, obviously you debuted in, was it 2006, 2007, sometime around then, and then, went into international pro wrestling, who I think you still work with, is that right?
Yeah, they're based out of Swanley in Kent. They're still running shows down there.
Yeah. So then you moved onto 1PW, who I think have folded and most probably come back a few times since you were there. And then eventually on to Dragon Gate. So how did all that come about, that progression through? Who contacted you, and do you miss those days? Do you long to go back to Dragon Gate at all?
Well, Dragon Gate came to the UK for the first time in, I believe, 2009. I was, fortunate enough to be a part of their shows, not just in the UK, but in Germany as well, as I was working for WXW at the time, who were running their Dragon Gate Europe show, I suppose, out of Oberhausen in Germany. I got to be on both nights. It was like cool as anything, getting to travel with the guys. Off the back of those shows, I got asked to go to Japan. Going out to Japan was a lot of fun. It was a life-changing experience. Just being in a foreign country where the language is so completely different to your own, different culture, being out there for, it was the furthest I'd been away from home for the longest amount of time that I've been away from home. So that changed me a lot, I suppose, personally, as well as professionally. You're in the ring every night, you're training, you're learning a different style, you're learning different things. It was a hell of a time, and I love to go back.
So that was with Pacquiao out there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I take it you watching his career with interest at the moment?
I try to watch matches of his when I can. It's always cool to catch up with old friends and that. Obviously through my own busy schedule, I don't get to do that all the time, but it's cool seeing him out there wrestling in NXT now under the name of Adrian Neville. What's especially cool as well is that his tag team partner, Oliver Gray, used to be my tag team partner in the UK under the name of Joel Redmond. So it's good to see both those guys out there getting the level of success that they have.
Has WWE ever reached out to you?
No, I've never been approached by them.
So is that something that they approach you, or do you go for a try? Do you have to approach them to do it? How does it work?
It really depends who you are. Some people are going to be approached by them. Others go to tryouts and that kind of thing, and get picked up that way.
Having a young family, as we can hear, does that kind of make you a little bit hesitant about possibly moving over to America again, or Japan, or anywhere like that? Or do you kind of feel like you would go wherever you needed to if it helped your career?
Well, at the end of the day, it's like my aim now is to be as successful as I can be in professional wrestling. Now, whether that be in America working for a bigger company or a global company, and whether that be out in Japan sort of working out there, at the end of the day, it's a business. You go where the work is. I've spoken to my fiance briefly about what we would do, and there was a point in the middle of last year where I was going to relocate to America while I was under contract with TNA. At the moment I'm based out of England, and that's the way that it looks like it's going to be for some time, which, is great because I get to spend more time with my son and there's a slightly more of a relaxed schedule.
Sure. Now with regards to, you mentioned TNA there, how did that come about then? How did you move into TNA?
Basically what it was is that after my final tour with Dragon Gate, I was asked to go back, I think, early in the next year, and then when it got to sort of the end of 2010, they said, we'll have to push your next tour back to about May time. In the meantime, I was approached by TNA to do their January European tour of 2011, and of course, I would have loved to have been a part of it. So I said, sure, I didn't have anything going on at that time. I think there was about 7 dates in total. Got to travel with the guys. I learned a lot. It was a great experience. And then just towards the end of the tour, I got asked, if I'd be interested in signing a contract with the company. And then I guess the contract took a few months to come through. And then finally, when it was signed, I ended up debuting on Destination X pay-per-view of that year.
Sure. Going back to that time, obviously you said you travelled with the guys. I'm guessing you'd have spent time with Doug Williams, etc. Bearing in mind you'd already worked with him. But there's obviously a lot of rumours going on at the moment. People being released and all the turmoil backstage. What was it like at that time? Was it quite well organised, or was it the same kind of chaos? And obviously I don't want you to burn any bridges in case you're hoping to go back. But what was it like at the time?
Well, at the time that I got signed, I mean, from what I remember, like anything that I needed to find out, or any, things that I needed to deal with, everything went smoothly for me. I don't really know. You hear all these rumors coming out all the time, but it's a different thing when you're actually there. I mean, for the most part, I found everything to be run professionally. I found it all, organised. If I needed to speak to someone, I knew where to go, and I found them, spoke to them, and things got sorted.
Sure. And when you were under contract with TNA, you never actually moved over to the States then, is that right?
No, basically what happened was when I was under contract, the same way that I believe Magnus and Doug, for the first 2 years of their contracts, they were being flown out from England every few weeks for tapings and what have you. When I was signed a contract for them, I believed it was going to go the same sort of route as such. However, once I signed, there was a transition of power between Russo and Pritchard, and I suppose just when Pritchard came into power, because the flight from England is quite expensive, he just didn't see the need in flying me out all the time, which is why after a short sort of stint on TV out there, I didn't appear again until the European tour. Also, what wasn't particularly helpful was after having a match which went out on Explosion, I remember laying on my bed in Worcester, watching it and hearing Jeremy Borash say that I'd relocated to America, which, that was kind of cool, but then suddenly I'm thinking, oh great, well there goes all my bookings in Europe then.
So you mentioned Pritchard there, and obviously I don't want to go into whether you got on or not, but it sounded like that was the turning point. I believe he's just been fired himself from TNA. Does that open the door for you to go back to TNA, or was that never the issue anyway?
That was never an issue anyway, I mean, I spoke to Bruce, we got along, I spoke to him only a few times, we had very limited interactions, but the times I did, he was fine as anything, obviously now he's been let go, and I'm sorry to hear that for him, but it was never a case of because he was in power, that didn't mean to say that I couldn't go back, it just didn't work out that way.
Sure. Would you like to go back at some point in your career?
Oh, sure, I mean, I always love to go back to places where I have been before and, think, what would it be like a second time round, and, just how I would do things differently, or, just little opportunities that you feel like you missed the first time, which you would therefore, hopefully pick up on the second time round.
Sure. Obviously, you're still very young, at 25, so you've still got, a load of time ahead of you. When you suffered that concussion and neck injury, was that, obviously it was going to be a worrying time, but can you tell us a bit more about it? What was going through your mind? Did you think you'd wrestle again?
Well, initially what was going through my mind at the time of the concussion was the ring canvas at Wembley. I mean, basically I remember coming off the top, I don't remember landing. Apparently I got to the back and I was walking around talking to people. I believe I collapsed on the floor in the dressing room. If you speak to the Americans, I was having convulsions. If you speak to the Brits, I was having a little shiver. Ended up going to a nearby hospital. They diagnosed me with a minor concussion. I had no neck injury whatsoever. In actual fact, my back had been plaguing me for the months prior to that. And after doing that, it felt fine. It was literally like by a chiropractor. It was great. But, I mean, at that point, it was just one of those things where you come out of it and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to take some time off, just like the space of a few days or whatever it was, just to kind of I guess, get your head back in check and that kind of thing, and then reevaluate your game and sort of see where you go from there. But I was back on the road within the space of a few days.
Right. Okay. Well, it's interesting you say, because obviously, when we talk to people, we try and find all the sources we can, and obviously there's a lot of misinformation about that time. So that's great that you've cleared that up. So going forward with regards to that, obviously there's a lot of, once again, talk about people being released and those kind of things. I take it that if they called you up, you would go straight back if they gave you the chance.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, obviously there's a lot more to it than just that. There's relocating to America from England is a very lengthy process and all that kind of thing, and especially now because I have a family that I need to think of and care about. So it would just really depend on what worked out for the best.
Okay.
And at the moment, you're enjoying life over here? Then are you doing working various indie shows?
Oh, absolutely. I only realised randomly the other day that since my child was born, I've never been happier in life on an average day-to-day basis. And he comes on the road with me a lot. Him and my fiance, so you'll usually find him sort of like at a merchandise stall at the back of the hall or something like that. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I love my life at the moment. Like, you get to be on shows all up and down the country. I'm coming to Scotland slightly more, which is a lot of fun. I enjoy the travel. I enjoy what I'm doing. It's great.
Do you take the family with you when you go, or is it time away from them?
Yeah, no, they come with me a lot. I hate to think how many miles Jack has already racked up over the short 8 months that he's actually been alive, but it must be in the thousands by now.
Sure.
And do you go kind of all over the country? Is there anywhere you don't want to go to because it's too far away, or would you just travel sort of?
There's places I don't want to go to, like Hull, just because it's a very scummy city, but I have shows there all the time. I love the promotion. It's just a shame that it's in Hull.
There's a nice aquarium there.
I wouldn't have a clue. I feel bad getting out of my car. Just like when we drive in, I just stay there with the windows wound up. I don't like what I see.
So on that note, then,
I hope you're a heel in Hull. Otherwise, you are now.
You know what? I have a growing popularity wherever it is I go. The people in Hull don't particularly like my thoughts towards them, so I suppose if they boot me, then yeah.
So can I ask, why the dislike, other than obviously the fact that it is just Hull? Is there a bigger reason than that?
No, it's just Hull. It's one of the most horrible places. The only place I can think of that's worse than that is Swindon.
Well, that's not too far.
Have you ever been to Luton?
Luton? No, I believe I've stayed away from there.
Yeah, I think that might be a contender.
So anyway, so obviously looking through some of the guys you've also wrestled with, even more recently, people like Marty Skrull and who we've had on the show in the past. What do you make of the British scene, and what do you think about the talent there? Who would you rate as second to you, obviously, on the British scene?
I'm glad you added that in. Who would I rate as second to me? There's a guy called Rampage Brown, who is a current partner of mine in the group, now being referred to as Screw Indie Wrestling. In my opinion, he is so underrated. It's unreal. He's he's definitely, in my opinion at least, the best heavyweight in Europe today. He's just that good. Every show that we're on, I enjoy watching him go out there just because everything that he does is just flawless. He's got such a great game going for him. Obviously you have other guys who are talented, such as Nathan Cruz, who's really starting to make a name for himself now and break out there a little more. You also have guys who are sort of less well known, such as a guy called Wild Boar, who I believe, within the space of a few years is really going to break out there and make a name for himself. You've got guys like Joe Connors, who's on, at that same part of his career as Wild Boar, where he's trying to break out, he's trying to make more of a name for himself. He's developing, he's getting his feet, he's really, within the space of a few years, he's probably going to be one of the top guys on the British circuit today.
So if we fast forward, 5 years and you're headlining WrestleMania, who's in the ring with you?
Wait. What do you mean? Fast forward, and if I'm headlining WrestleMania, it's when I'm headlining WrestleMania, and whoever I'm in the ring with is, whoever it happens to be.
Well, I know that. If I'd have said, 6 years, I would have been given, but that's why I was bringing it forward to the 5 years,
Right. You don't think I can quite make it in that 5 years with that additional year at the end?
Giving you some breathing room.
I don't know, it's so hard to predict because, I've been wrestling, 6 or 7 years now. 6 or 7 years ago, I wouldn't have thought I would be at the point of my career where I am today and have done the things that I've done. It's so hard to kind of predict where it is that you're going to end up or the things that you're going to do in your own career, let alone anybody else's.
Okay. Who would you, of the current sort of wrestling scene, if you look at over sort of WWE especially maybe, who would you like to wrestle? Who do you think you could have a sort of great match with?
I have no idea. There was a chance at one point when Bryan Danielson was in Europe that he and I were going to end up sort of fighting each other on a series of shows. that didn't happen because I believe he then got signed to WWE at the time. So I mean, that's kind of one of those things where it's like you kind of feel it was a missed opportunity or whatever. So I guess it would be cool to kind of do that, especially on a grander stage. There's guys obviously like CM Punk who are ridiculously talented, who would be great to get into the ring with. You know, there's a lot of guys who I grew up watching, like, I don't know, The Undertaker or Triple H or whatever, where it'd be one of those crazy sort of moments, I suppose, being in the ring with them. And thinking to yourself, like, I used to have an action figure of you. You were my world champion, and now I'm fighting you. I can't believe it. But
how much do you kind of, as a wrestler, do you end up sort of regretting those missed opportunities? Like you say, that you almost had a series of matches with Bryan Danielson, and now you kind of, I mean, obviously, even then, everyone knew how amazing he was, but he sort of seems to finally be getting the recognition he deserved all those years. Do you sort of, is there kind of a big tinge of regret that you never got that chance to have a series of matches with him?
I suppose so. I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of think to yourself, like, what would, you know, where would I have gone, or what would have been done differently had this have happened instead of this? But, you know, it's so hard to, you know, really judge whether it would have made a bigger, you know, a difference in the bigger picture or the bigger scheme of things. It's one of those things where, obviously, if you're in there with someone as talented as him, or as good as him, you're gonna learn. You're gonna find out whether you can go with somebody of that caliber. And I suppose that's really the difference maker as such.
So you mentioned there, you know, you had the action figures and you'd like to be sharing the ring with them. Who would you say has been I suppose the one that you've got in the ring with and you thought, wow, I can't believe I'm in the ring with this guy? Has there been anyone like that?
So far, the only, like, one of the occasions I can think of, like, that was my first show for TNA, and this was a house show in Lyon, France. I wasn't signed to the company, I was just traveling with them in their European tour. And the match was Shannon Moore and myself versus Matt Hardy and Jeff Jarrett with Kurt Angle as a special guest referee. And it was one of those kind of surreal moments where you're looking around and you're just like, I used to watch these guys on TV, you know, like I used to watch them on VHS, if anybody remembers that, you know. Yeah, it's just kind of one of those crazy experiences, I suppose, especially when you think back to your friend giving you the twist of fate on his bed or whatever when you're a teenager, just being, you know, dumb kids, and then the actual Matt Hardy is, you know, doing it to you then. It's just, I guess, a reality check as such.
How important is it to kind of to not be overawed by that and to feel that you belong in that situation and not just kind of feel like, oh my God, I'm completely out of my depth?
Well, that's the thing, is like I never see those times as a time of, like, you know, as a place to let your nerves get the better of you, you know. I mean, especially, you're going to be in there with guys who are talented, who are known or have made reputations for themselves as some of the best wrestlers in the world, not just of this sort of era, but a previous era as well. So to me, it's more of a chance of stepping in there and making sure that you know, that you don't look out of place with those guys. If they're considered some of the best wrestlers in the world and I can hang with them, then what does that say about me?
On that note, it must be quite encouraging to see Matt Hardy once again being so well liked. You know, bearing in mind, without being disrespectful to him, but I think a lot of people have kind of written him off over the last few years. So it must be quite encouraging, you know that there's always that time to get back to the top again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really down to every individual person, you know. I mean, there's an old quote which I really like, which is that failure is not falling down, failure is falling down and refusing to get back up. You know, there's been a load of people who have had, like, late breaks in their careers, not just in wrestling, but in general. You know, I mean, for example, you can sort of fall away from the spotlight or whatever, but and people might rule you out or whatever, but that doesn't mean to say that the game is over. You know, it's really down to you to pull it together and bring yourself back from that and go wherever it is that you want to go.
Just before I hand over to Gavin and ask Sean a few questions, I've got one which intrigues me. I mean, you look at the champions of recent times, and you look at Saban in TNA, you look at, hopefully, Bryan shortly, Punk recently. Obviously, from a build point of view, you're most probably in the same, you know, height, weight, etc. size. Does that sort of like encourage you to think that, yeah, I can be at the top have the top belt in the top promotions, or have you ever sort of like said to yourself, now where I want to get to is be the best wrestler out there without the belt?
I guess, like I said earlier, like my main concern is being as successful as I possibly can be, and if that means going for the biggest prize in professional wrestling today, then I'd definitely set my sights on that. And I guess it is encouraging as well, seeing guys who have, been the same route that I have, who are a similar build or height and what have you to me. It's definitely, all inspiring to see them doing well and reaching the heights of success that they have done.
I mean, from my point of view, as I said, I saw you on the Pro Wrestling Elite show the other day, and you just, without disrespect to the other people on the card, but you did seem, a cut above the rest, which is why I was thrilled when you came on tonight, so thank you for joining us. But Gavin, have you got a few more questions before we wrap it up?
Well, I wanted to know, and I'm sure our listeners would like to know where they can catch you in the sort of near future.
I have a memory like a sieve at the best of times, so I can't really remember, but...
Have you got a website or a Twitter?
Yeah, I have a Twitter, which is @Mark_Haskins. You can check my schedule for the most part at shophaskins.com, which is also my merchandise website. You can catch my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/MarkHaskinsPro. And you can also catch me on YouTube, which is youtube.com/Channel Haskins.
Right, before you go, there is one question that we ask all of our guests that come on, and so far well, I'll tell you which one's winning before you answer it to give you time to think about it, but the question is, if you had a choice, you had to either wrestle a horse-sized duck or 12 duck-sized horses, what would you go for, and how would you win the match?
In all honesty, if I was anybody else, I'd really think about this answer a lot more, but because I'm me, I'd fight all of them together, and I'd still win.
Well, you're not the first one who said that, although I think one of our guests did say they'd run like the Clappers, just to get away from the freaks of abomination. So thank you for answering that. We'll add you to the list, but for the time being, Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for your time this evening. We'll let you get some peace now, but by the sounds of it, you have got some peace because your son stopped crying.
Yeah, eventually. I don't know what he's up to. If he stops crying, that generally means he's up to trouble.
Well, I should recommend that he listens to our podcast each week, because that does tend to send people off to sleep. So if you're ever struggling in the future, just put it on in the background. But for the time being, thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
Good night.
Bye.